going on, people? Welcome to this week's episode of It's All Blakademik with me, your host, Jordan Jarrett-Bryan, and we have got a really, really good show for you guys once again for you guys today. But just before we get into our show for today, a heads up, if you don't know, the Blakademik shop is now open for business. Head to blakademik.com/shop and you can find our hoodies, men's and women's. We've got t-shirts, men's and women's. We have rucksacks. We have Blakademik face mask. You know, be safe. Can't get it on properly, but you know how it goes. Go and pick on our shop, blakademik.com. Head there, go and get yourself an early Christmas present or treat yourself after a really, really hard 2020 and go and buy a top or hoodie for yourself there as well. And secondly, Blakademik Community has now launched as well. So what we want to do, what we want you guys to do is head to the website once again. At the bottom of the homepage, if you go to the sign up bit, all you got to do is add your email address. There's a couple of questions there about what you guys want from us, how we can facilitate the discussion you think we should be covering. We want to really build a Blakademik community of people where we're interactive and engaging with you guys to make sure that we're serving you guys as much as possible. There will also be some extra content in Blakademik community that you won't be able to get anywhere else on the channel or on our website as well. So go there free of charge, website, give us your email, and you will be part of a growing Blakademik community. Right, so on to today's show, which I'm very, very, as usual, excited about. I'm very excitable, but this show I think is going to definitely bang. We're going to discuss today around being Black and dating. And it's something that I think many people in the Black community want to talk about, want to hear about, and are definitely experiencing, whether you are currently still dating or you've found a partner and you've had a bit of a traumatic experience dating as well. And to do so, I've got three fantastic guests, as usual, with me today. I'm joined, first of all, by broadcaster and presenter Claire Clotty. I'm also joined by the host of the podcast. You well? Thank you very much for joining us, Claire. Appreciate that. We're also joined by the host of the podcast, Authentic Series Dating, David Chambers. How are you doing, sir?
Hey, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well, mate, very well. And we also have businesswoman Shari Lee with us as well. Shari, how are you?
Good, thank you. Thanks for having me. Hi.
Good. Everybody's nice but good. If you guys are nice, I'm nice. I'm going to kick it off by asking, who loves dating? Who in here loves dating? Let's just start with that. I love dating. Don't do much of it anymore, but I love dating. Who of you guys loves dating?
I do.
Go on, tell us why.
Why? For me, I guess why I love dating, it's an opportunity to meet people, you know, and get to know new people, learn about them, their life experiences, what they've been through, and share my life experiences and learn more about myself by being in relation with other people, whether that be something long-term, short-term, or just like one date. You learn about yourself. It's a process of learning. And I really love that about dating.
Ladies, are you guys in that long-term process, or is it a case of you want to get to a good date, meet the man, and then get to where you get into?
Okay, I will say I love dating the same person when I'm in a relationship. I absolutely hate dating as a single person. I hate it.
Why?
I hate the idea of shopping for someone that I'm compatible with. I hate the idea of being examined or observed as a potential fit. I like organic connections with people. I like to be in places. I'm very sociable. Like David, I really enjoy having conversations with other people and learning about their life story, their history, their inspirations. But I don't enjoy the intimacy with someone who ultimately we know we're both seeking a long-standing connection.
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to say, so I don't know, I think I kind of fall in between the two. I wouldn't say I love dating, but I wouldn't say I hate it. I haven't had, awful experiences dating, but at the same time, it's always that awkwardness, that first date, that period of kind of getting to know somebody that can kind of feel really kind of exposing and awkward at the same time. But then I do enjoy the social element. So I understand that idea of trying to kind of connect with someone and meeting new people socially. But as for learning yourself through someone, that I don't know. I think I kind of feel like I went through the took the time out to kind of learn myself and do that work intimately to kind of learn who I am and come to the table kind of in that way. So I suppose when I'm dating, I kind of expect someone to also have been doing that work on themselves, rather like we will meet and obviously have to work together at some point. But, you know, I don't know, in the dating period, I think that's not where I'm kind of trying to work and see if we need to, you know, work on each other at that point. So I think that's my difference.
I want to bring in the kind of cultural element of dating and why I think being black and dating is a different experience to being of any other ethnicity and dating. And I want you guys to kind of jump in there as well. But before we get to that, who thinks they're a good date? Who on this chat here says, you know what, because I think I'm a good date. I think I'm a good date. It's the later on bit that I think maybe I'm weak. But I think I'm a good date. Does anybody here think they're a good date, or does anybody think that they're a bad date, and maybe that they haven't really learned the complexities of how to deal with the process of dating, and once they get to relationship phase, they're in their comfort zone, but the dating process, they think they struggle in. Who's good and who's bad here when it comes to dating?
I don't think anyone
I don't know.
has a bad date, right? Like, I think we all have something to the table, even if it's awkward. No, I think that's part of it. Like, you know, I think if you're a good person, that will come through on the date ultimately, even if there are awkward moments. So I wouldn't say anyone's a bad date. I don't know.
I'd probably say I'm a very
bad date.
Yeah.
Go on, Claire.
I'd probably say I'm a very inexperienced dater, which would make me a bad date because I do not like to date. I would prefer to attend a social event with lots of people I know and, oh, hey, you're going to be there? I'm going to be there. And just, I like to see somebody hold their own in a social space. I don't like intimacy with people unless I've really chosen it. So I'm probably a bit awkward. I'll eat food. Don't worry about that. I'll clean my plate. I'm not one of those, oh, I can only eat lettuce or whatever, anything like that. But I just don't enjoy sitting across the table from someone who's in my space like that. As much as I'm so sociable, people don't really understand this. I'm really sociable, but I only let a very limited few people in, whether that's in my home, into my, you know, my wider family home. I don't afford people the luxury of having me to that degree. I think, I don't know. I just think not everyone deserves to have me like that.
Love that. And David, let me ask you, as someone, you're going to be the dating guru of the four of us here because you have the podcast, so you're the expert, yeah? Doing the podcast that you do, is there such thing as a good date and a bad date? Is it almost like a game to be played and you can play it badly and play it well? Or it's just a case of, if you're yourself, you can't fail?
I think some people kind of date better because they are open. They're open with themselves and they're also curious about other people. Like when you have those two things, if you're open with who you are and you're curious about another, it's like you are open to who they are. It's like you're like, oh, you're listening to who she is, what she's talking about. If you're a guy and you're interested and curious, and then you're willing to kind of talk about yourself and connect, then you can have, the worst you're going to have is a date where you both talk, you both share a few things in common, but not that much, and there's no kind of connection and you part ways. I guess some people, everyone's idea of what a bad date is different. You know, like for me, a bad date would be someone who is kind of closed-minded, doesn't want to talk about themselves very much. I once had a date where a girl wouldn't tell me like where in London she lived. Like she said, I live in London. I was like, whereabouts? She goes, I live in London. I was like, so do I. And I was like, okay, and that was the first of a few things where she was like, you could tell that she was very concerned about her privacy. And there's a point where I said, you know, look, I totally understand that you're really concerned about your privacy, but like, it's very hard to know you if you won't kind of give me a ballpark of like what job you do or where you do it, you know. And I said, you know, I understand, but it's like, for me, it makes it quite difficult. So everyone has their idea of what a good and bad date is. And like, I really get what Claire's saying about, it sounds like for you, emotional intimacy is like a very private thing. And I really
yeah,
get
absolutely.
To feel safe
David,
as well and feel comfortable with someone.
Yeah, I think it's about what's the intention of dating. If you're just going out to, oh, you're an interesting person, let's meet up, That's, to me, is not a date. I do that with men, women, old people, young people all the time. I have no problem networking, connecting, catching up, meeting someone on social media and just saying, oh yeah, you know what, we've got some similar interests. And that's really, David, I'd love to meet up with you actually, because, just before we've come on air, I'm like, yeah, he's a really interesting person, but I'm not interested in dating you. I'm locked up.
just for clarity.
You know what I mean?
How do you meet somebody then? Like, I'm not sure. So how does that work? How did you meet your husband then? Because I guess you seem quite obviously guarded. So how do you get to that space where you are getting to know somebody, somebody new that's coming into your life?
Again, it's networking, it's socializing. I met him doing something that I really enjoy doing. It's I think that, when you were saying, Sherry, that you have to work on yourself, I agree and disagree at the same time. I know you did say when you come together, you have to work together again, but I think you have to be doing the things you love. You have to be organically out and about. I don't think that if you, the kind of person who is at home and doesn't socialize at all, I think, yeah, your chances are slimmer, and there are other resources like online dating to help you out. I'm out there. I'm out and about. I'm talking to people. I'm really happy to get to know people, but it's very few people that can spark my interest on an intimate level. And I think as a journalist, I'm always inquiring. I'm always interested in the mind and the behaviors and experience of others. But to get the brain, the heart, and the vajayjay aligned, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. There's so many beautiful people. There's so many good-hearted people, interesting people, hot, sexy-looking people. But it's got to be the whole package for me.
What you said about kind of the head, the heart, and the genitals, it's very yogic, and it is very true. It's like we have these different centers that we make decisions from, and it's really important in dating that you are making those decisions from those places, because it's really easy I think in a society now, people just think with their genitals. It's just like men are thinking with their dicks. They're like, oh, she's hot. I want to date her and sleep with her afterwards. And they're forgetting that actually there's this heart part. There's this connection.
Sorry, David, let me push back on you and Claire a little bit. I'll just challenge that a little bit. Whilst I totally understand what you're both saying, some people will be saying, you're just overcomplicating it. Why can't it just be catching a vibe? Why can't, you know what? We get along really well. We have some similar interests. I think you're attractive. You think I'm attractive. You know what? Let's just go and kick it. And if it just doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. Some people will think that you're putting a lot more of the mental side into the process than is probably necessary. Can it not just be a bit more, you know what? Let's just go get some food and just catch a vibe. Or is it more than that?
I think it's your intention, isn't it? And what your beliefs and values are. If you intend on just being single, and you enjoy short-term relationships, and you're quite comfortable with 2-year, roundabout, and then on to the new, then that's cool if that's what you want to do. But I'm what I describe as a lifer. I've always wanted to have that secure, steady relationship that I can really build a foundation on for my children, hopefully grandchildren, great-grandchildren. I want to make that contribution to the world. I see that as my purpose. So for me to frivolously date is defeating the object of my purpose. And whether I've made that purpose up in my mind, or whether, I've had some kind of spiritual awakening, that's what I feel I was born to do.
Hear it. Yeah,
I understand all of that. And I think I genuinely agree with everything you're saying, because I understand, being in long-term relationships, and that's how I've been as well. And then I came out and I've been single for a long period. I think what it is for me is like, it has to start somewhere. And, I'm not necessarily somebody that's always like out networking and doing all those kind of things. So I think I understand, when Jordan's saying, like, it is sometimes just about kind of catching a vibe, and that vibe that you're looking for is that somebody that sparks it on a more intimate level for you. And then you go, okay, this is somebody that I want to get to know way more about. But I think it's just that initial, okay, we have to kind of start somewhere. You kind of have to get to know someone. And if you don't, if you're not out kind of networking and stuff like that, that has to be dating. So I think, you have to kind of get comfortable with, kind of, speaking to different people, and maybe not all those conversations are going to be, life-changing conversations, or going to be that with that person that's your soulmate, but it has to kind of start somewhere.
Yeah. Well, do you know within a short space of time whether someone you're going to be in a long-term relationship with someone or not? Because I think you can tell very quickly.
Yeah, so do I. I used to have this rule, which was 3 dates maximum, right? So to me, it's, you go on your first date, you can have a really, really good first date, and it can all be like all nice and lovely. And then you go on your second date, maybe not so much heat, but still something good. If I'm in the second date and I kind of think, actually, there's still nothing here, then definitely not. Because I think, everyone needs a second chance sometimes, so depending on the first date. But generally, I try to be a bit more open-minded as well, kind of, especially as I get older and I change what I'm looking for. So I try to be more open-minded. So I always try to at least do a second date, if it's kind of like it was a good date but not sure. But yeah, definitely, if I get to 3 dates, and well, we won't get to 3 dates if I feel that it's a no-go. So I think you can really tell in the first couple of dates if you want to see somebody. You can tell on the first date, really, if you want to see somebody again. So I don't think it has to be a long, drawn-out process. And yeah, if I'm probably seeing you beyond 3 dates, then I know it's going to be something that's a bit more, long-term. And then I'm really kind of, looking to get into the in-depth things and find out more about you, and, do things that we enjoy together and all those kind of things.
I actually think the significant part of dating is the in-between dates as well. Whilst I really enjoy the actual dates themselves, I think it's the in-between date. So it's the day after the date, and it's the kind of what's the communication like, and what's the tone like. That I think you can pick up a lot on whether something's going well or whether you're enjoying it as well in between dates. Because on the dates is the easy bit. I think it's it's the right amount of communication, it's the right tone to kind of make sure that everybody's on the same page and happy. But what I wanted to ask you guys now is, some people will be saying, why did I frame the debate at the start as being black and dating? Because I want you guys to explain the experience of being a black person, and in particular the ladies, why that differs from being a white person in dating or an Indian person in dating. Let me kick off with you, Shari. If indeed you agree that being a black woman in dating is different to other ethnicities dating, tell us why.
I definitely think it is a different experience as a black woman dating, particularly if you're a black woman looking to date as another black person. I think it sounds really bad to say, but I think there's always questions you ask. Is this a black person that dates that dates black people? Is it somebody that has a certain type of view? And I think, unfortunately, when it comes to kind of black people dating, I think politics as well plays a big part in that too. So I think that's where it kind of becomes a little bit more tricky than kind of the average kind of group dating. Also, I think just within our community, there's kind of so much hype around. It's either, black love all the way, or there's always kind of it's always a discussion topic, whether it's about interracial dating, it's about black love, it's about, can black men and black women actually get along together? There's just always so much kind of extra politics around that. And then being in the sphere of dating, and we've obviously always seen the statistics about, black women being less selected on apps, that they're the less desirable. So all those kind of things, I think, play a factor when you're a black woman dating. And you have to kind of think about that when you're, looking at who's out there as well, and the type of man that you're looking for.
Yes, I definitely think it's a different experience for black women dating, but I think we definitely need to contextualize this. It needs to go a lot deeper, and some people might say, "Oh, you're going too deep." But if we think about it, how many examples of happy, healthy black relationships do we see? Now, even if we don't know that they exist in white homes, Hollywood has portrayed these fantastic relationships for us to see, for us to aspire to. Black people as a community, as a people, we're very secretive and selective. There's a cultural nuance around, if something's going really good, a superstition of it might be too good to be true, or other black people are going to try and interfere with the good thing that you've got. In terms of black women being less desirable on, dating apps, I don't necessarily buy into that. I think that not enough black men put themselves out there on dating apps. Therefore, the type of person who might more openly be attracted to you is not actually on that platform in the first place. And if they are on that platform, there are a plethora of women who equally over-sexualize or desire or want to tick off the fact that they've dated this black man or whatever their reasons. There's a lot more competition. And for a black woman, when they are on these social media or dating apps, it can feel like you're fetishized, you're this exotic fruit, you're this, oh my gosh, this is really mysterious and exciting and fun. Let me try. But I've never really had the intention of going full-fledged. So I think there's a lot of dynamics at play. And I equally think that some of our traditional practices of dating have gone out the window, and I think they're quite useful. What happened to someone introducing someone to someone and, hey, this is my friend, this is my cousin, they're single. Traditionally, where I'm from, Ghanaians used to do that, like the Asians, not necessarily arranged marriage, but introductions. Black people have become so defensive to that kind of thing. If I say to a single black female, oh, I've got a friend, oh, it's all of this fear and anxiety and, oh no, almost like shame. You're single, I've got a single friend. Why are you embarrassed for me to introduce you, with the possibility of something going further? Now, I don't want responsibility for that relationship, but I have no problem introducing you. So I think there's just so many different dynamics at play, and we are our own worst critics. We don't even know what someone else is going to say about us, but we've already thought about all the bad things, all the reasons why potentially we're not good enough, because I think that's what it really comes down to. I don't think if you're very confident within yourself, the first thing you're going to start doing is going, oh, you know what, I'm not going to be picked on this because there's X amount of people on here. You're just going to go with it. So it is very difficult. There's so many things at play in our minds, which has led me, the first thing I did when I started dating was check myself into a relationship, therapy, because I knew I was good on my own. I'd managed to get myself to that level of independence, self-sufficiency, and just wholesomeness. Suddenly, here's a potential great prospect, and I'm looking for problems where there isn't any. This is too good. Pick. I could potentially sabotage this relationship, was what I was thinking, because I was good on my own, but I had not learned how to be good with someone else, if that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Mm. Yeah, it does. It does totally.
Yeah.
Go on, David. David, you pick up. You want to say something?
Yeah, I think there's some interesting things Claire said there. Like, I really agree. It's one of those things that, how we view the world is how the world occurs to us. How we think the world is how the world occurs to us. I think people are not acutely aware of this enough. It's like the more you say, if you're a black woman, and I've never had the experience of being a black woman, and you say, all dating apps are useless for me. They're shit for me. All the men there, they're fetishizing me. I'm not going to be picked by decent men. And more of that. What you're going to experience is every time a man matches with you, that's in your head. It's in your reaction. You're like, there's a suspicion. There's this, what's this guy about? That sort of thing. So we have to be really careful of that sort of thought patterns that's going on in our head. And also I'll say about our experience of relationships. It's like, what did our relationships look like as we grew up? What were the black people in our lives? What did their marriages, their relationships look like? Were they functional? Were they dysfunctional? Did we recognize them as being dysfunctional? Because you bring that into your dating life. As much as you think that your past is in your past, it's imprinted on your brain and you're carrying that into your life. So, the way we date as black people is really, really kind of ingrained past, and the trauma that we've experienced when it comes to sex and relationships. You can't part that with the trauma we've experienced, right? So I say, as a black man, I think it's interesting because the people I coach, I've coached like Eastern European men, I've coached white guys, I've coached Australians, and it's what's really interesting for black men is there is a fetishization of black men, like whether that's white women, whether that's I'd say it's mainly come from white women, to be honest, especially Europeans, and cultures where they're not used to black people. And even it happens in like the kind of fringes of England and so forth. So there's that dealing with that's just really interesting, because there's this idea of you being kind of like this ghetto man that they want to sample like a fine wine. And for me, what would happen to me a lot in my dating was I would turn up and I'd be this man who's quite refined, quite worldly, well traveled, and the women would be shocked because this is not what they expected me to turn up and be like. Whether that be someone I met in a bar one night, quickly took a number, or someone I met online. So there's that perception about black men that black men are battling as well. And there's also the perception of black men that black men don't want commitment, they can't commit, they just want sex. That is a big rhetoric that still rolls around very prominently when it comes to dating.
I'll come to you next, Shari. Sorry, for the perception thing I think is really interesting about when you're a black man that's not what they thought they were signing up for too. I want to touch on the fetishization thing a bit more as well, and sex, because I believe the fetishization of black men works differently to black women. I think that a lot of black men play on fetishizations and they use it to their advantage in a way that from a lot of the black women I know, and the ladies can agree with me or disagree, it works against them. Because as Claire explained earlier on, it tends to be this thing from non-black men that they want to kind of try a black woman. They've heard about the round booty and they've heard about all the kind of stereotypes that kind of come with a lot of black women. Whereas I think a lot of black men like it and play on it. I just wonder, I'll pick up with you, Shari, if you agree with the difference in experiences with being fetishized with black men to black women.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, just before we do, I do want to quickly just touch back to what we talked about in terms of black women and their experience on apps, and also kind of feeling like, if you go on there with this mindset of that you're not going to be selected, that, black women are less attractive, that's already at play when you're kind of trying to meet somebody. I do want to just make sure we're careful not to kind of gaslight the emotions of black women. And I think that happens quite a lot in saying that, it's in your head, or you have to do the work on yourself. When I know lots of black women who always do the work on themselves, and we're always constantly growing, constantly, trying to do that partnership thing and trying to learn more about what they look like in relationships and how that works. But there are also very real things at play. And, I saw a YouTube thing. There was a girl, a YouTuber. She is of darker hue complexion, and she kind of put her profile up. And then what she did is she done a exact same profile with her picture, her exact face, but lightened her skin color in it, and then showed the different responses that she got. So, and that actually then played back into the fetishism thing, which we kind of came round to. So I just want to say that I think it is a very real thing when we're talking about, the fact that on these apps, black women may be less selected. But I don't think it's, I think obviously, yes, it is also a mindset and how you approach someone when they match with you, and remaining open-minded and not kind of keeping that with you. But I think we just need to be careful not to kind of dismiss it as this thing that could be in black women's head. And then, just to go back into the fetishism thing, I was going to say it as David was talking, it kind of sounds like you're saying you openly kind of go out on dates with women that are fetishizing you. And I think that's kind of part of the problem. You're kind of saying, I turn up and I'm not exactly what they expected me to be. Well, I just kind of wanted to get an idea of what you think they expect from you. And if you think it's this stereotypical kind of black image, is that not kind of playing into this, right into that fetish card, basically?
Yeah, I'd definitely say, like in my younger years, like I definitely played into it. I was a young man, and I was, I was driven by different values and different desires to what I am in the last few years. Where I learned over the years that, if you're just looking for sex and a good couple of nights as a man, it's like you can just play into it. But as I grew older and I wanted something more meaningful and I wanted to connect more deeply with people, you exchanging a few messages and you're like, oh, I see what this is here. This is someone who they want to kind of enjoy the perception over the reality. And I would just bow out at that point and be like, oh, I'm not into that, or that's not the sort of man I am. So I definitely say, like, and I know guys are definitely, you're in your 20s, you're young, and you're just looking for fun and enjoyment, then men definitely play into that. I would say I've definitely done that in the past.
Guys, tell me about some of the things that you've heard from when you've been on dates that that have made you very, very aware that the person is aware that you're a black person. So have any of you guys been on dates where a kind of joke has been said without them realizing it, or a comment? Or, I mean, David had kind of alluded to it earlier on about stereotypes of, say, a white woman, as an example, thinking she was getting this kind of black man, and David is this kind of black man. But has anybody been on a date where they can tell us an example or a tale of where their race became very, very relevant and obvious in the dynamic of the two, between yourself and the person you were dating?
For me, it's always going to be that question. That, and I get it from black men because that's who I date. And I will say there's a difference when dating a mixed race man and a black man, but I'll tell you what that question is that really upsets my soul, because they're assessing me as a black woman rather than a woman. Can you cook?
Oh.
Whoa. Whoa.
It's like, it's that once you've said that line, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
But hang on. Sorry, Claire. Sorry, Claire. I know Italian women, Latin American women that also get asked that question by guys they go on dates with. I'm not so sure it's
okay,
just
hold on.
a black. Go on. All
right. Can you cook? What do you mean? Like, can you cook? It's the double. Okay. It comes with the, because I challenge it. I'm like, what do you mean by cook? Like, because where are you from? I'm from Ghana. Oh, great. Can you cook? Yeah, of course I can cook. Like, you know, I've got to sustain myself, let alone anyone else. No, but can you cook? Yeah. What can you cook? If I said lasagna, paella, risotto, no, they want to know, can you pound fufu? Will you be standing over the stove making banku like my dad did for my mum and serving me on a tray with a cold glass and a serviette fold? That's what they're asking me. Can you replace my mother?
Yeah, 100%.
That's how I interpret.
100% agree. But yeah, that's it. It's exactly the same experience. And when a man says that to me, it kind of lets me know, it makes me feel weary, because I'm like, okay, what are you looking for? Are you looking for someone that's going to step into that mother, auntie role, that's going to be coming here to, like, you know, take care of you? Or are you looking for a partner, someone to grow and, you know, develop with? But, you know, the only difference is I'm Jamaican, so it's, can you make oxtail? Can you cook curry goat? Literally. But I don't think there are other women.
Just for clarification, can you cook oxtail and curry goat?
I make a bad curry goat.
What?
Keep curry goat.
Get off the channel, man.
Sorry, Shari. Go on. Sorry.
I completely agree. And I just think, yeah, I don't feel like, you know, other races of women might be like, oh, can you cook? Oh, yeah, that's so nice. But basically, it's like, if you're a black woman, the standard is a completely different standard. And it's not the standard of somebody that you would just be looking at if you were dating outside of your race. I don't know any other white woman that's, you know, been told if they can cook lasagna that they can't cook. Black women will say, oh, I can cook a lasagna. And they'll be like, oh, well, you can't cook then. So
I will say in Asian communities, because I've coached quite a lot of guys from various Asian communities, and it's quite a standard question for the men to ask for, say, a Pakistani man to ask Pakistani women, like, can you cook? Or an Indian man to say, yeah, can you cook these regional dishes? You're from this area. Can you cook this? Can you cook that? It's an interesting one, because it's never left I can't even think of the time it's ever left my mouth to say to a woman, oh, can you cook? Unless it's been very, you know, normal. You're talking about certain food, and like, can you cook that? But I'm not like, oh, can you cook so you can replace my mum? Because my mum hasn't really cooked for me much for the last 15 years, so it's not even on my mind. But
So David, what's the equivalent question then that men are telling you they get asked by women? Is there an equivalent that the guys are telling you with the coaching that you do that really annoys them or really triggers them or makes them think, okay, yeah, this is going to be the last day we have?
Money questions. It's like, how, you know, it's not even necessarily obvious questions necessarily, women, like, how much money do you earn? It's like, you know, what's your position? Like, who do you work for? Oh, that company, never heard of them. So it's not a reputable company. You know, it's money. Men are very touchy about money as a question that is being asked about when it comes down to dating. Because men are very worried, I'd say irrationally, about gold diggers. Like, oh, she just wants me for my money. She's going to take me to the cleaners if we get married. And I know it's an irrational fear for men. I talk to them. I go through it with them. And you most of the time what you see is that they're projecting outwardly that their women want them for their money, but actually it's internally, they don't think they have the worth. They don't think that they have the value. So they're trying to create value through having their own money. You see, it's a bit of a cycle that happens. But yeah, it's definitely money questions that men really gets their back up.
I want to add to that, though. I think that fear and anxiety is also fueled by their parents, unfortunately, because I know of black men whose dads, whether they're in the home or not, will tell them, be careful of gold diggers, and whose mums will say that, and not necessarily for healthy reasons, but because their son has been helping them manage their household. And it's like, oh, if a woman comes along, is she suddenly going to start taking away my washing machine money, my fridge money, the little change that my son gives me to... There's this codependency thing going on between some mothers and their sons that I think is very unhealthy. But then also that thing from fathers, especially if they're out of their home or if they've seen their friends go through a really traumatic situation. Yeah.
It's this kind of traditional role of the man as being the provider, which just gets taught downwards, which isn't very useful, right? Because we're in an age now where women, they make their own money. Like I think I was reading a statistic about the States where women under, I think it's 35, out-earn men, right, of the similar age. So it's like we're coming to a world where a woman doesn't necessarily need a man for money. She wants companionship. She wants connection. She wants a relationship. She wants like growth. And men just need to let go, and they need to be stopped being taught that your value is in your performance. Your value is in your output. No, your value is in your character and who you are.
Guys, where do people meet dates now? Because especially this year, 2020, where for half the year the world's been on lockdown, we've touched on apps and the experiences that black women in particular can have on dating apps. Claire mentioned earlier on about being introduced by friends, but other than that, if you're ready for a date and you're like, I've done the work on myself, I'm ready to be with someone, I want to have some fun with somebody and really go out and date and do the thing, where do you go? Where do people go now to meet people?
Wow,
I'm asking for a friend.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, I recently kind of broke down of my kind of thoughts and expectations of what I thought about apps and joined a dating app and actually was pleasantly surprised, was kind of talked into it with a couple of friends and they've also come back and said they've had good experiences as well. So on this particular app actually, and yeah, it's been good actually. And I think because of, lockdown and stuff like that, we've seen kind of reports, we've seen people saying it, people are now looking for more of a connection. The idea of kind of just kind of meeting for a hookup is kind of gone as well. And I think that's taken a lot of the kind of, the people that were there just for kind of casual hookups off of the apps and really brought on a lot more people who are looking to kind of connect on a deeper level. And because of that, I think people are having good experiences and I've been having, great conversations and met some really great people. So I think, it's definitely, I think lockdown has kind of changed the way I've looked at dating apps and definitely the experience that I've had on a dating app so far. So.
What's the app called? Hook us up, man. Share the love.
I've been on Hinge. I've been on Hinge. It's been good. It's been good.
Okay.
And I think that's great. I think that's great because I think, I went on an online dating app for 3 days and I came off because people I knew, including an ex's brother, came up as a potential match. I was like, whoa, this is not the space for me. But I think previously, when I've sat down with friends and I've tried to go through apps with them, it's very much felt, as a black woman, it's felt like going into a techno rave. I don't do techno. You don't do techno. What are we doing in this space? This is not the right space for us. You might meet an interesting person, but it's just not the right space. This is noise. We know this is noise. So take yourself into a space that is more conducive to the community that you want to be around or that you're interested in, might have shared values or traditions or whatever. And I really want, black people to really understand that just because you're black doesn't mean that you'll automatically get everything. My fella is African American. I'm a black British African with Caribbean cousins. Very dynamic identity. So I think go into apps now where some of the dating apps where you pay, I think there's an invested interest in doing this smart and doing this properly. And I have no problem with those apps. I would actually suggest to people, go on those apps. It's a useful way of filtering some of the nonsense, the techno.
Yeah.
Let me ask you guys about the kind of sexual element of the sexual dynamic of Black people dating. And if you guys feel that there is a difference in expectations, conversations, and just a different energy. And when it comes to the kind of, I don't know, the sexual energy that I think you maybe get when you're dating as a Black person, is that different as well to when, I know that Claire and Shari don't date non-Black men, but has anybody heard from their friends who are Black who do date non-Black men or women about the difference in kind of the sexualization of that process when it's with non-Black people?
I wouldn't say I don't date Black men. Sorry, I only date Black men. I've dated one white guy. I was quite young, and actually I was very concerned about what the outside world would think. And so at the time, I think I was too immature to really appreciate that person. But in terms of sexualization, I definitely do think that chemistry, let me eliminate that word because I think that word is overused and not in the right context. I definitely think that physical attraction is important. It's not the be all and the end all. But I do think you have to be able to look at someone when you're angry and still be like, oh, just something about you still, you know, so that you can bridge the gap in some way, shape or form and overcome situations. But yeah, some of my I'm at a friend's house. I'm sure she won't mind me saying this. She's a mixed race woman who dates white men, right? And, you know, I help her unpick this. So in recent years, we've really been trying to understand, what is this about? Your dad's Black and you never date Black men. Anyway, for her dating white men and for my white girlfriend who dates white men, sex ain't nothing. They are doing it like, if it's, oh yeah, next week, it doesn't matter. It's not a massive hindrance. You know, if they have sex on the first date, they could get married and it'd be fine. As a Black person, oh my God, we had sex on the first date. This could never be anything long-standing. He's never going to respect me. He's never going to lock me down. Oh, I've ruined it. And that's it. It's the end. Whereas, you know, I think there are, of course, promiscuous or more free-spirited Black people with sex, but they keep it quiet. They're not shouting about it. It's undercover lover business. It's, if you're going to do it and you're going to be bold about it, just be bold about it. But I don't, or if they are bold about it, they're loud, incredibly loud. And it's got to be a statement, a political statement. I'm free, I'm liberated, I can fuck who I want. It's like, where's the balance? Show us something along the spectrum, please.
Yeah. I feel like I've definitely dated in and out Black women, white women, Asian women. And I'd say that there's not a huge difference in people's sexual nature. I think one of the things around attractiveness as well, like who we find attractive, is socialized, right? It's not even necessarily a personal choice. We are socialized into who is attractive. So like if you've come from, depending what your community was like when you grew up, what your family was like, you know, if you grew up in if you're Black and you grew up in an all white area, for instance, you're probably more likely to date white people, right? And find white people attractive because that's what you grew up with. Or if you had very poor, kind of role models and like what Black people are like, then you might move away from Black people. Do you know what I mean? There's a lot to unpick there. There's a huge amount, right, to doing that. And one other thing I would say is about the previous question about how to meet people. Quite a few of my clients have been using introduction services, like what you would traditionally call matchmakers. And they've had some very good results. They've met some very interesting people. It's something that Black people don't move towards. Like it's one of those things within the matchmaking community that they struggle. If there's someone that's Black comes along and says, I want to date Black people, the matchmaker's almost like, okay, cool, but I don't have any Black people in my books, you know? So that's another kind of area to meet people.
Yeah.
But I think that, you know, kind of to touch upon something we were talking about earlier around sex and Black people, is really interesting that we're highly sexualized, right, in the media. And I think some of that's, I see music, I look at that, it's like black men and women in music, it's like, they're all just fucking. It's just like half naked having sex. But yet, when you talk about black people, when you talk to black people about sex in a more like intimate or more maybe even spiritual sense, it's like, whoa, you can't talk about sex like that. Sex is just like, it's like fucking. Or if you talk about freedom in terms of like bodily freedom, in terms of sexual freedom and liberation, like I find that in some of the spaces I move to, you just don't really find, especially black men, you don't meet black men in those spaces, which is a real shame, I feel.
I feel that I definitely get that, actually. Especially growing up, I felt like there was so much kind of pressure on me as a young black woman, right, over my kind of sexual identity and, you know, sleeping around. And there was always this idea of, you know, you don't want to get no babies, you know, boys on the end calling you names. All those kind of things were around you so much. So there was this kind of really kind of closeted kind of sexual growth, I guess, of your sexual identity, just kind of growing into that and what that means, or whether you do want to be promiscuous or sleep around, or that freedom. I just don't think when you're a young black girl, I think it's you've got like this much freedom before somebody around you is going to basically call you out of your name, and I think that plays a lot into it. But I think as I get older, I realize that is kind of a stigma around, you know, being younger black men. I think as I get older, I meet older black men. I think we're all much more open. You know, we've talked about going to the extreme now, and we have women who are out and proud and talking about their sexual liberation. And while I think, you know, there's definitely some tweaks to be done to that message and kind of how it's being orchestrated, I do like it in the sense that I know what it kind of felt like being younger and feeling kind of so sexually oppressed. And then I knew, you know, young white girls who were my friends, and they would go on holiday to, you know, Corfu, and that would literally, they'd be talking about all the sex they'd be having and all the guys they'd meet, and literally the fact they wanted to go out there. And it was something that was so alien. And I'm not saying, obviously, you know, young black women should run out there and start doing that. But I do like the fact that, you know, right now black women have a more space than ever to kind of express themselves sexually, because it does play a part when you're starting to date someone, in just how open you can be, and not necessarily sexually open. And I think that's the message that we need to kind of, you know, tune in on. How do we kind of manage who we are, our sexual identity, our sexual persona? How do we kind of manage that and, you know when to share it and when not to? But I think the freedom and the fact that you're able to express it and own it is something I'm very much behind, and I want to see more, you know, black people do. And I think as we get older, that becomes less of a stigma about, you know, whether you're going to sleep with someone on a first date, or, you know, whether you're waiting, you know, 6 months because you want to build a connection or whatever. So I think it's also something that age plays into it too.
Yeah.
Go on, Claire. Go on.
Sorry, Jordan. Just wanted to say that, again, I think family influence is so huge. I remember when I was about 16, and a cousin of mine used to come around all the time, older guy cousin. Everyone fancied him. He's a bit of a goon, a road man about it. And I remember him saying to me one day that he would never wifey a light-skinned woman. And this is a black African man. Oh, no, never wifey that. Okay. But you lot are always teasing me about being yellow in the family. Well, like, am I light skinned, or am I? Yeah, you're light skinned. Yeah, you're cool, but I'd never wifey a light skinned woman. And I remember that being stuck in my head, because when I asked him, why wouldn't you, you know, marry or whatever, settle down with someone who's fairer complexion? He said that they were loose, they were easy, and they were shit in bed.
Wow.
Whoa, okay. Do you know how much that played in my willingness to open up to a black man? It was unbelievable. I was like, anyone who's darker than me has this assumption of me. So it's not that I don't find you attractive, but I think that you think that I'm easy, or I'm not good in bed. I'm not freaky enough. And of course, a darker complexion, you know, my sister's darker complexion, she would have maybe the opposite, in the sense that, oh, you're going to be extra freaky because you're going to be that much more keen to please, because you're not necessarily the society's status quo standard of beauty. But that didn't come from men outside of my immediate circle. That was my own relative. And I didn't realize that had stuck with me for so long.
It's so easy to take on those stories we hear and be like, this is how the world is.
Because you trust your family. At that age, you trust those who are around you. If I got into a problem, if I needed money, if I was somewhere that I wasn't supposed to be and I told my mum that I was, he would cover for me. This is someone who I trusted. So I trusted his truth, or I trusted his perception at that age, and I held on to that.
I'm going to wrap, guys, by asking you guys for your best and worst dating experiences or dates. But I'll give you a couple of minutes to think of that. Before that, I just want to go back to the thing that Shari was talking about earlier on. And I just wonder if we have to almost reframe and reimagine what dating in 2020 now is, and what relationships even are now. Because maybe the reason why dates are not happening as much as they used to be is because there's more and more people now that are just quite happy to be the person that just dips in and out of different relationships, or, you know, dating people on a very, very open basis. Listen, I'm happy just meeting 2-3 guys or 2-3 girls, and I'm gonna own that. I'm gonna be liberated by that. I don't want to be tied down by that. That's how I want to live my life. Are the traditional ways of dating, are they just outdated now?
I'd say that it's like really important to really check in with the people you're dating. Like, what's your dating intention? Because dating is this term that you could ask 20 people and you might get 20 different definitions of what dating looks like, or dating success. Like, I was one of our posts on Instagram, and we said something about, I said, you know, if you're dating just to get married, then you could be in for a lot of trauma. Like, you can open your mind to dating to meet new people, blah, blah, blah. And I said, but, you know, everyone has a different level of what success is. It's like, marriage is not necessarily the be all end all of dating for everybody. For some people it is, for some people it isn't. So I think it's like checking in with the intention of what the people you're dating is. And I'd say, when it comes to like old ways of dating, whether that's still relevant now, like meeting people is still meeting people though, right? It's still connecting. I think relationship structures are going to start to change. I think you're going to see, you know, people are looking at marriage and going, okay, we get married for life. A lot of people are like, is that really realistic? Marriage was a construct that was brought about in the days when we probably lived to 30 or 40 years. Now we live to almost 100. You know, we do evolve as people. You know, you've got the advent of people who are moving into more kind of polyamorous relationships. You've got some people who are just going celibate, just going, that's it. I'm not in this dating business. Fuck this. I'm just going to do me and move through my life, be successful, enjoy myself, and spend my time with my family. So we're seeing a lot of changes in dating. And I think driving that I think is great is women. And I think it's something we've always seen, is that women's rights, women's liberation, women's requirements drives men and the dating to more higher levels. You know, it's like if you go back 60 or 70 years ago, a woman who's dating, she's like, I just want a man who can look after me and, you know, look after my kids. Now we're expecting a lot more from our relationships.
I definitely think that there has been some movement on the traditional sense of dating, and, you know, people are a lot more open-minded. However, at the same time, simultaneously, the Black family, or the desire to build Black family, Black communities, is rising alongside it. So where marriage wasn't cool, marriage is becoming something that is being embraced so much more again in the Black community, because people want that lifestyle where they can travel the world and have that companionship, or just have a certain level of life, whether it's financial reasons, whether it is spiritual reasons. I just keep seeing more people wanting to build together, to build a legacy, so that they are, whether they have children or they adopt children, so that they have a legacy of some sort, whether they leave money to their nieces and nephews. They want to build and continue to build the Black empire community, if that makes sense. It sounds like social responsibility of some sort.
There is social responsibility, right? Like, I completely agree. I think, it's for me, I class myself as someone who's pro-Black, who has Pan-African views. So I think if you're going to say that, then yeah, that's definitely in your thought process when you're dating. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think, you know, having that idea of kind of social responsibility, or responsibility to your kind of wider community, of how you want to give back and how you want to build and how that looks generationally. So I think that's very important. But to go back, I think, I don't think that meeting somebody the natural way, the more organic way, will ever be outdated. As much as we have apps and things like that, I think, there's always still going to be that time when you might meet two people are going to meet in a situation that's more social, through friends, just on the street, whatever. So I think people will always kind of find ways to meet. I think it's just great now that we have, more ways to do that and more ways to connect. And even like when David touched on the matchmaking thing, like I think that's so cool. I recently watched Indian Matchmaker on Netflix.
Amazing.
Yeah, and I thought it was so brilliant. And I thought, you know what, if they had this within our community, I would definitely sign on to the book. So if I knew there was someone that was doing that and it was all about, people who are Pan-African, like-minded, and they'll connect you on all these different levels, like, I'm completely open for it. And I think, there is more of this shift towards marriage, more of this shift towards building generationally, more understanding now than ever of it. And I think because of that, people are looking for marriage. But yeah, we've got more ways to do it now. We've got apps, we've got, meeting people the organic way. I always ask friends to introduce me. So whatever, I think it's good. We're open and we've got lots of different avenues to pursue that.
Blakademik dating soon come. I'm going to start it up. Don't worry. I'm going to link up all the black people that are single. Get it on Blakademik. Don't worry. We got you. Got a good idea there. I personally, just my point on apps, I think that apps work in favor heavily of men. I think dating apps, from what I've seen, my friends and what I've seen myself, I think apps work disproportionately in favor heavily of men. I think that's why I'm concerned about the dating process of traditional means kind of becoming outdated and being phased out, because I think men know they can have what they want when they want, in a way that I don't think so many women are so accustomed to that kind of way of being. So I do get concerned about how apps distort who's benefiting from that. I think it's mainly men. But I'm going to wrap up by asking all three of you guys for your best and worst dating experiences. I'm going to start with you, David. I want to hear from all three of you. What were your best and worst dating experiences? Try and keep it brief-ish and tell us why it was your best and why it was your worst.
I'd say my worst, I think I kind of touched on it earlier, where I met a girl and she just wouldn't really tell me anything about herself. And it was just painful for me, I'm here to connect, I'm here to get to know you, and you don't want to tell me anything. And it's like, we can live in, and it was from online, actually. I met her online. And it's like living, I really got the sense of like someone who, and I understand for a woman, it's like living out of fear, but it just didn't resonate with me. And for me, I think I left early. And I think I probably only left early, probably 2 or 3 dates in my whole life. But I was just like, this is really painful. I'm leaving now. I may not have been my words, but I put it very diplomatically, but I did leave early. My best date. Wow. I don't know. I'd say...
Don't upset your current partner.
No. She's next door as well. We had a really good date. Me and her, we just really connected. We really just spoke really openly and honestly about, who we were, what we want for our lives, like what we enjoy. And everything just flows very nicely, very organically. There's no forced conversation. There's no like pre-planned questions. Like for me, that's a really beautiful date where you look at the time and you're like, wow, time's gone really quickly. And I know so much about you. I feel like I've known you a very long time.
Worst date, it was many moons ago, when a guy, after going through an interview process with me, because it wasn't a date, it was an interview process, proceeded to walk me to the station and expected a kiss. And when I say expected, held his hand around my waist, pulled me in when my train had come and I was trying to get on the train. I was like, you're not going until you kiss me. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is hell. And I didn't kiss him. I was like, I started making noise, and then he let me go. Yeah, traumatic. And then my best date, probably being taken somewhere that I really enjoyed going, knowing that it wasn't really that person's interest or area of interest. But hubby basically did the research, was like, okay, this is a theatre, she loves seafood. And it just was seamless. And I could tell that it was well thought out and he'd been listening to everything, all the conversations, and taking notes.
Well, actually, this is not my worst date, but I have to say it because I always think it's the most hilarious story I've ever heard. But basically a friend of mine, she went out on a kind of working lunch date. So met this guy over her lunch break, went for lunch, and then as soon as she came back, like he messaged her and basically asked her back for the money for the lunch that he had just bought for her, which was like £5, and sent his bank details so that she could give him the money back. So I mean, that was the worst. That's the worst I've ever heard. Like honestly. But yeah, in terms of a good date, I think your face.
That is wild.
You said
I've heard about this before, though.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was crazy. But in terms of a good date, I think just everything you guys have said pretty much. Your best date I've been on, you know, just take me for something nice to eat, you know, have that connection, talk about all those really important things and connect on that deeper level. And also, you know, they've shown that they have paid attention to all the conversations you've been having, all the things you've been talking about. And yeah, you just know you've kind of connected on a deeper level, and that's a good date for me.
My producer's going to beat me up because we're so well over, but I've got to ask this question. I was going to ask it just before, Shari, you came in then. Just very briefly, guys, where do you all stand on who pays the bill and who is precious about splitting bills or splitting the costs, and who is very kind of ambivalent about it? I'll go first. I'll just kick off. So I'm one of those guys. First date, I'm paying for everything. Or I'm paying for the lion's share of the evening. That's the way I am. But I know lots of my guy friends are like, nah, we split it. Fair's fair. It's 2020. Why would I pay for everything? But I'm just that way inclined. Where do you guys just briefly stand on the whole who pays for what on the first date?
I mean, I don't demand it, so I'm happy to do it if you want to, but I mean, I think it kind of leaves a different impression. So I think I like it when I don't even necessarily see it, to be honest, and I don't have to do the awkward bit. But yeah, if you want to split it, I'm happy to split it.
I love that. I don't even see the bill. It's taken care of. I went to the toilet, I came back, we're putting our clothes on.
Oh, are we gonna split? Or the the rummage around looking for the card? Like, I don't want to do it. So yeah, let's do this. Just go ahead and sort it out.
Claire?
I'm not really fussy, to be honest, so long as we've had the conversation before that awkward moment when the waiter gets there. It's always nice when a guy insists, but again, you know, my dating experience is limited. When certain guys have insisted in the past because of a couple of my experiences, I'm like, oh no, I don't owe you nothing. I don't really want you. Let's just go halves. And then we both know we're just both here and yeah, I don't owe you anything. I don't owe you a second date.
See, David, that's where a lot of men, David, can't win, because if we pay the bill, then we lose, because then the woman's thinking, he's thinking, I owe him something. Yeah. If we say no, we're gonna split the bill, we're getting side eye, like, okay, I was like that, okay.
No, I said I didn't really mind in the beginning. Just let's have that conversation before we get to the dinner table and the waiter gets there, because there's nothing worse than that awkward bit. If we say we're splitting it, cool. If you say you're gonna pay, cool, but I know what the expectations are when that bill comes.
I almost always offer, but I must say I do find myself having a bit more respect for women who insist on paying like half the bill. But there's times when I will insist. When it comes down to it, I don't really mind. But I will always say this to my clients. I say this to women I meet, is like, this men paying for the bill. If its roots are in sexism, like that women can't provide for themselves, that if you pay, then the woman does owe you something. That is its roots. Like, we have to be really aware of it. It's like, that's a deep, and continuing that, I don't think is, a lot of men still believe, like, if I pay for the bill, she owes me something at some point. And that's not right. Yeah.
I hear it. Listen, I really enjoyed that, guys. I've got lots of tips. I've got no pen and pad, but trust me, I've been making notes. Notes up here, believe me. I really enjoyed that, guys. David, Claire, and Shari, thank you very much for joining me here on It's All Blakademik. Don't forget, once again, the Blakademik shop is open. Go and treat yourself, a bit of self-love. Black business, we are a black business. Go and support a black business. Go and buy a t-shirt or something. We are out here. And also Blakademik community. Sign up to our Blakademik community. There's so much more stuff coming very, very soon. Subscribe to us on Blakademik TV, YouTube. Check out our website, and we're across all the socials. Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter as well. Until next time, take care of yourself. Look after the people, then.